Hello. Good morning, all of you. Am I audible? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so now this is a new thing which I was trying. Probably it is successful. Uh, Now the thing is that today we will start the develop. Am I audible clearly? Fine, fine, fine. Thank you. Okay. Now last time we had seen development of GIT, and with development of GIT, we saw that when there is a head folding and tail folding and lateral folding, the endoderm of the yolk sac, it gets localized and forms a cavity. That cavity is the cavity of GIT. So, foregut, midgut, and hindgut are actually nothing, but the primordium is formed from the endoderm of the yolk sac. Yolk sac itself disappears, but the gut is enclosed on all the sides. That is the basic thing for the formation of GIT. I hope you have understood it correctly. Foregut, midgut, hindgut. They all are part of gut. And last time we had seen how that becomes localized. So what we have, जो हमारे पास है available, चालू हुआ वो एक सिलेंडर जैसा चालू हुआ. सिलेंडर का front end is foregut, rear end is hindgut, middle part is midgut. Okay, that is how the three guts are divided. Now let us see what the slide has to say. Okay, now this is an abnormality. You are seeing a radiograph where there is something abnormal. This is called as Hirschsprung's disease. You can see there is a intestinal obstruction, neonatal intestinal obstruction. मैंने क्यों बताया रेडियोग्राफ? Because this is a type of congenital defect which causes neonatal intestinal obstruction. This is another thing, if you see. Here also, if you see it, this is called as congenital congenital malformation of GIT, where you can see this part is blocked. This is called as atresia or stenosis of GIT. This can happen in any part of GIT. Cylinder दिख रहा है. This cylinder can be esophagus. This cylinder can be duodenum. This cylinder can be jejunum. This cylinder can be ileum. So it is congenital malformation of digestive tract, atresia or stenosis. Here also, if you see, there is a cyst attached to small intestine. There is a duplication of small intestine. Double small intestine. One is this, another is this. One is this, another is this, parallel. Derivatives of derivatives of endoderm. If we see, endoderm gives rise to epithelial lining of trachea, bronchi, lungs. Endoderm gives rise to the epithelial lining of GIT also. This you have to understand. अभी हमने पहले बात किया लेक्चर चालू करते समय कि GIT कैसे बना, तो it is because of the endoderm of the yolk sac coming together in an enclosed cavity. So चालू जो हुआ है वो सिर्फ सिलेंडर से हुआ है, single layered cylinder that is forming GIT. That single layered cylinder is endodermal layer of GIT. So basis of GIT is formed by single endodermal layer, and that single endodermal layer starts the GIT. Please remember, बाद में GIT का जो डेवलपमेंट होगा वो एंडोडर्म के अराउंड कनेक्टिव टिश्यू आएगा, स्मूथ मसल लेयर आएगा, कुछ गैंगली आएंगे, फिर कनेक्टिव टिश्यू आएगा, ऐसे होके एक थिक वॉल्ड ट्यूब बनती है ना. यू अंडरस्टैंड, ईसोफेगस कोई पतला सिंगल लेयर का ट्यूब नहीं है, डिओडनम कोई सिंगल पथा. When it had begun, at that time it was a single layered. That single layer was endoderm, and the endoderm was the endoderm of the yolk sac. I hope you have got me correct. Not only GIT, but liver also is formed similarly. Pancreas is also formed similarly. Urinary bladder is also formed similarly. And urachus is also formed similarly. We will see all of this maybe in coming few days. It also gives rise to pharynx, thyroid, tympanic cavity, pharyngotympanic tube, tonsils, parathyroids. So, अगर आपने देखा होगा essentially coming back to formation of gut, which we had seen on that day, ये diagram उस दिन देखा था. So this is forebrain, notochord, or if we see here developing heart, head end, tail end, connecting stalk, ये yolk sac है, और ये close होता है. The pyramidal gut at the beginning of the 4th week is closed at its cranial end by oropharyngeal membrane. Cranial end of the GIT is closed by oropharyngeal membrane. If you remember, this is the procaudal plate which forms this oropharyngeal membrane or buccopharyngeal membrane, where ectoderm and endoderm are together and the mesoderm cannot pass in between. If you remember, हमने primitive streak देखा था. Primitive streak में intra embryonic body में between the ectoderm and endoderm spread हो जाता है, except two important points. One was procaudal plate, which here, as you can see, is forming buccopharyngeal membrane, and another is if you see here, cloacal membrane at the caudal end. So caudal end, cloacal membrane, cranial end, oropharyngeal membrane. This is the proximal or the cranial and the caudal end of the GIT. See, yolk sac is becoming narrow, yolk stalk is becoming narrow. The endoderm of the yolk sac is coming in between to make a closed cavity because of developing fetus as well as head fold, tail fold, and lateral fold. The primordial gut performs during the 4th week as head, tail, and lateral fold incorporate the dorsal part of the yolk sac into embryo. This is dorsal part of the yolk sac. This is yolk stalk. This is ventral part of the yolk sac. Ventral part of the yolk sac, which looks like main yolk sac, is going to disappear, becoming remnant. Endoderm of the primordial gut. This is the endoderm of the primordial gut. It gives rise to most of the epithelium and glands of the GIT. Again, coming back to it, कि gut का सबसे पहला क्या बना? Endoderm. एंडोडर्म एक सिंगल लेयर बन के बना। अब वो एंडोडर्म के अराउंड एंडोडर्म क्या बनाता है? एंडोडर्म विल फॉर्म एपिथेलियम। प्लीज रिमेंबर, एंडोडर्म विल फॉर्म एपिथेलियम. I will ask this. Endoderm will form the epithelium. So epithelium of esophagus, epithelium of stomach, epithelium of intestine, etc. Endoderm forms the epithelium, and it is the primordial gut. एपिथेलियम के बाद और जितने भी ग्लैंड्स ऑफ जीआईटी हैं वो एपिथेलियम से ही अंदर होके या बाहर निकल के बनते हैं. So they also are derived from the endoderm. That is how we saw that liver develops from gut, or liver develops from the endoderm of the primordial gut. Pancreas also develops from the endoderm of the primordial gut. They are two big glands. Okay, moving further. So epithelium at the cranial and the caudal tract is derived from ectoderm of the stomatodome and proctodome. वापस इस डायग्राम पे आ जाते हैं. अभी यहाँ पे बाहर की तरफ तो एक्टोडर्म है, ये पूरा एंडोडर्म है, but oral cavity is derived from the epithelium of oral cavity is derived from ectoderm. Likewise, tail part में cloacal membrane से distal, this is derived from ectoderm. So यहाँ तक का एंडोडर्म जो येलो दिख रहा है वो एंडोडर्म, but oral cavity this is buccopharyngeal membrane, and in the oral cavity is lined by ectoderm. This is written here. So epithelium at the cranial and caudal end of the tract, gastrointestinal tract, is derived from ectoderm of the stomodeum. Stomodeum means mouth. And proctodeum. Procto means the rear part, anal pit. Now, this is the second very, very important point. Before telling you this important point, also let me tell you that this is important from exam point of view. You have to remember this. जैसे एग्जाम की बात आती है मेरे ख्याल होंगे, which in a way you should remember also, and you should take note of it also, that whatever that is important is asked in exam. Now, if you are asked, for example, अभी इसी स्टेज पे मैं बोल रहा हूँ, बार बार बोलूंगा, बट अभी इस स्टेज पे कान खोल के सुन लो. डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इसोफेगस पूछ सकते हैं एग्जाम में. डेवलपमेंट ऑफ डिओडेनम पूछ सकते हैं सेपरेट शॉर्ट नोट एग्जाम में. अब जब डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इसोफेगस पूछते हैं या कुछ भी और दूसरा पूछ सकते हैं, या डेवलपमेंट ऑफ डिओडेनम पूछते हैं, मैं इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ जब पूछते हैं तो डेवलपमेंट में हम क्या लिखेंगे कि कहाँ से डेवलप होता है. तो डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इसोफेगस पूछा है, सो इसोफेगस इज द क्रेनियल एंड ऑफ द फोरगट. इसोफेगस इज पार्ट ऑफ फोरगट, ये तो आपको पता चल ही गया होगा. में पार्ट है. अब डेवलप कहाँ से हुआ? कैन समबडी टेल मी फ्रॉम वेयर विल इट डेवलप? कैन समबडी राइट? तो इसोफेगस का डेवलपमेंट में पूछा तो आप क्या लिखोगे? लेट मी ट्राई कि आप कितना क्रिएटिविटी यूज कर सकते हो. डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इसोफेगस में पूछा ना, तो व्हाट विल यू राइट? अभी जो बताया उसके हिसाब से व्हाट विल यू राइट? कैन समबडी राइट इन द चैट बॉक्स? कैन समबडी राइट इन द चैट बॉक्स? कुछ तो समझ में आ ही गया, यू नो. डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इसोफेगस अगर पूछेंगे तो वेरी गुड, somebody has written. I appreciate that. Let me see. वेरी गुड. इतना तो लिख ही सकते हैं, फ्रॉम पार्ट ऑफ फोरगट बिटवीन pharynx and stomach. Yes, very good. खेवानी मकवाना. यस, ओके. इससे आगे और क्या लिख सकते हैं? वेरी गुड. सो इट इज एंडोडर्म. ट्रू. एंडोडर्म इज epithelium. वेरी गुड. एंडोडर्म. श्रेया, स्तवन. Develop caudally from heart. No. मुकेश, नो. ओके, ठीक है. अब मैं बोलता हूँ. अब मैं पर्पसफुली इसमें रुका थोड़ी देर, so that you take it seriously. Now it is very good that you are writing endoderm, but please remember GIT का कुछ भी पार्ट, किसी भी पार्ट के बारे में शॉर्ट नोट पूछते हैं, एंडोडर्म इज द बिगिनिंग, वहां से चालू होता है. उसके बाद GIT में लेयर बाय लेयर बढ़ते जाते हैं, बनते जाते हैं. Layers get added, layers get formed. So inner layer, middle layer, outer layer, म्यूकोजा, सब म्यूकोजा, सीरोजा, ऐसे लेयर्स ऐड होते हैं. अब जो इसमें सबसे इंटरनल लेयर है, प्राइमोर्डियल लेयर है, फर्स्ट लेयर है, वो एंडोडर्म था. बट प्लीज रिमेंबर, इट इज नॉट ओनली एंडोडर्म, इट इज एवरीथिंग. Endoderm will be surrounded by muscles, smooth muscles, and connective tissue in circular layer, which is mesodermal in derivative. It will also have blood vessels, which are called as vasa vasorum, or not exactly vasa vasorum. They are the blood vessels of blood vessels. Sorry, I'm sorry, but the blood vessels which are present in the layers of GIT, it also gets blood supply. Those blood vessels are derived from mesoderm. So endoderm से क्या बना? Epithelium of that part of GIT. Mesoderm से क्या बना? Connective tissue, blood vessel, smooth muscle layer, etc. of that part of GIT. दैट पार्ट इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि एग्जाम में पूरा नहीं पूछते हैं, इसोफेगस पूछते हैं या डिओडेनम पूछते हैं. तो आपको वो पार्ट के बारे में लिखना है कि दैट पार्ट विल बी फॉर्म फ्रॉम, सो द epithelial lining of the esophagus will be derived from endoderm. The smooth muscle layer and the related blood vessels of the esophagus will be derived from mesoderm, and in between the smooth muscle layer and the outer layer there will be parasympathetic ganglia. Those ganglia are derived from neural crest, and neural crest is derived from neurectoderm, and neurectoderm is derived from ectoderm. Are you getting me? तो इस तरह से हम देखें तो एक इसोफेगस है या तो डिओडेनम है, इसमें सब कुछ आ गया, सारी चीजें आ गई. एंडोडर्म भी आ गया, एंडोडर्म से क्या बनता है वो लिखना पड़ेगा. मीजोडर्म भी आ गया, मीजोडर्म में से क्या बनता है वो लिखना पड़ेगा. और एक्टोडर्म भी आ गया, क्योंकि एक्टोडर्म मॉडिफाई होता है और वो न्यू एक्टोडर्म बनता है. और न्यू एक्टोडर्म से न्यूरल क्रेस्ट, और न्यूरल क्रेस्ट से पैरासिम्पैथेटिक गैंग्लिया, एंड पैरासिम्पैथेटिक गैंग्लिया विल बी प्रेजेंट between the layers of GIT, as they will help in the motility or movement of GIT. I hope you are getting me correct. Now see here further. So muscular, connective tissue and other layers of wall of GIT are derived from splanchnopluric mesoderm, but mesoderm surrounding the primordial gut. प्राइमोडियल गट कैसे बना था? सिर्फ एंडोडर्म का सिलेंडर, जहां ऊपर का पार्ट फोरगट है, नीचे का पार्ट हाइंडगट है, बीच का पार्ट मिडगट है. प्राइमोडियल गट मे बी अ सिंगल लेयर थिंग, बट उसके अराउंड क्या है? मीजोडर्म. कौन सा मीजोडर्म? स्प्लैंक्नोप्लोरिक इंट्रा एम्ब्रियोनिक मीजोडर्म. वो क्या करता है? दूसरे सारे लेयर्स बनाता है, of muscle, of connective tissue, of blood vessel, etc., which all are surrounding the primordial endodermal layer. I hope I have made it clear. Okay, now coming back here, if you see stomatoderm, oral cavity, ये जो दिख रहा है foregut, then this is midgut, and then this is hindgut. If you see here, it is again similarly foregut, midgut, hindgut. Foregut, as you must be knowing by now, extends from buccopharyngeal membrane to the septum transversum. Midgut communicates with the vitelline tube and yolk sac. ये connection, there is some noise. Let me mute you all. Midgut, as you know, there is some noise coming. Can you please mute? All of you keep yourself muted. Okay, fine. So this is the way foregut, midgut and hindgut are situated. Hindgut में थोड़ा सा important वो है, it communicates with allantoic diverticulum, as you can see. It communicates with allantoic diverticulum and extends to the cloacal membrane, and that helps in the formation of urinary bladder. बाद में देखेंगे, पहले हम foregut की तरफ से चलते हैं आगे. Foregut is divided into three parts. First part is pharynx, second is thoracic part, third is abdominal part, which passes through septum transversum. This green colored thing is septum transversum. Actually, its name is thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. This diaphragm is going to separate the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So it is called as thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. The third part of the foregut passes through it and gives rise to abdominal part of esophagus, stomach, and half of the duodenum. So these are the derivatives of foregut, or these are the structure, these are the viscera derived from the foregut. Pharynx, thoracic part. Thoracic part gives rise to both. Please understand. यहाँ पे ये पॉइंट भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये फोरगट ही है, फोरगट का थोरेसिक पार्ट है. ये फोरगट का थोरेसिक पार्ट ईसोफेगस का थोरेसिक पार्ट बनाता है. This thoracic part of the foregut will form the thoracic part of esophagus. Esophagus has got two parts. The larger part is in the thorax. It is called as thoracic part. A small part penetrates the thoraco-abdominal diaphragm and comes to lie in the abdominal cavity. That small part is called as abdominal part of the esophagus. So thoracic part of the esophagus, abdominal part of the esophagus. One important thing which is here, if you have noticed, is the thoracic part also gives rise to a diverticulum. एक pouch जैसा और एक extension है. This extension is coming out of the thoracic part of the foregut, and this part is called as respiratory bud. Respiratory bud. So the respiratory bud arises from the GIT. Please understand, very important statement. The respiratory bud arises from the GIT. Which part of the GIT? Thoracic part of the foregut of the GIT. Then this part, which is respiratory bud, will give rise to trachea. Trachea will bifurcate into bronchi, bronchioles, etc. And then the whole respiratory tree will be formed. But again, you must have noticed that this respiratory bud is, or respiratory system rather, we can say, arises from the foregut only. Which part of the foregut? Thoracic part of the foregut. Okay, you see this diagram once again, you read it. Okay, so you must have seen this and understood also this part till this part of the foregut. अभी pharynx अपन अभी नहीं पढ़ेंगे. Pharynx we will study with head and neck. Thoracic part और abdominal part अभी देखेंगे. So the foregut derivatives are pharynx with the derivatives tonsils, tongue, salivary gland, etc. I told you this we will study with the head and neck. Another important part which is coming is lower respiratory system. We saw it. So that is derived from the foregut, esophagus, stomach, duodenum, half of the duodenum is from the foregut. And you must have been taught in theory that there is an opening of common bile duct. Now till that point, it is derived from the foregut. And distal to that point of the duodenum will be derived from, who will tell? Distal to the opening of the common bile duct will be derived from which part of the GIT? Can somebody tell me? सो तो नहीं गए? मैं बोल रहा हूँ GIT में duodenum जो है, the distal part of the duodenum. There are two parts of duodenum. There are actually 4 parts of duodenum. But if we see embryologically, there are 2 parts of the duodenum. Proximal part, proximal to the opening of the common bile duct, as we saw, is derived from the foregut. Distal part, distal to the opening of the common bile duct, is derived from, very good, midgut. Very good, midgut. Very good. You have written, many of you have written midgut. So that is how we can ensure that we all are on the same boat and you all are with me. Okay, fine, very good. So Nayan, Drishti, Janvi, you all have answered it correctly. I know others also have written, but I will have to scroll it back to name everybody. Sagar, Chandni, Raj, Drishti, Kevani, Stavan. So, if you are asked a short note on duodenum, the first thing will be that it is derived from both foregut as well as the midgut. So these are the derivatives of foregut. Right now we are talking about foregut. Also liver, biliary system and pancreas. They are the glands and the ducts. They are also derived from the foregut only. Okay, nice. Moving further. Okay. Now, one important thing that there's a dorsal aorta. You can see it from this diagram that this is dorsal aorta. If you see, simple diagram, this is the dorsal aorta which is running at the back. Dorsal aorta. It supplies arteries to the gut. Here there are aortic arteries which supply the pharynx. Then there is a set of 5 arteries which supply thoracic part of esophagus. And then there is vitelline artery, which initially supply the yolk sac and forms a plexus. You can see here. Initially it supplies the yolk sac and forms a plexus around the gut. This develops into arterial system of the abdominal part of gut. So dorsal aorta. 3 main arteries form from the vitelline plexus. So this is the vitelline plexus, which we saw, vitelline artery. They conglomerate and form plexus, and they form plexus in such a way that it supplies the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. Supplies the foregut, as you must have correctly noted, is celiac trunk. Celiac trunk. It supplies foregut. Superior mesenteric artery supplies midgut. Inferior mesenteric artery, it supplies the hindgut. The boundaries of the foregut, midgut, and hindgut are determined by their respective blood supply. फिर से पूरी लाइन पढ़ो. Foregut, midgut, and hindgut embryologically are determined. Blood vessel is celiac trunk for the foregut, superior mesenteric artery for the midgut, and inferior mesenteric artery for hindgut. All three are branches, direct branches of aorta. Direct branches of the aorta. Single, not paired. Single in the midline. Superiorly celiac trunk, then superior mesenteric, and then inferior mesenteric. Okay, so that is how they are situated. You should know this can come as a objective question that what are the arteries of foregut, midgut, and hindgut. Okay. Of esophagus. First part, we are seeing the first part, which is development of esophagus. Development of esophagus. Now, again, let me tell you, first to try to understand whatever that I am telling for the development of esophagus. कोई भी organ जो मैं बार बार बोल रहा हूँ वो पूछते हैं that is important. Development of esophagus is important. Development of duodenum is important. Development of stomach is important. Like when individual organs are asked. Now, when you answer it, you have to say for that particular organ कब डेवलप हुआ, उसके बाद किस जगह पे डेवलप हुआ, उसके बाद किसका पार्ट है, जैसे कि ये फोरगट का पार्ट है, उसके बाद कौन सप्लाई करेगा, तो ऑब्वियसली द आर्टरी ऑफ द फोरगट विच इज सीलियक ट्रंक. उसके बाद कैसे उसके लेयर्स डेवलप हुए. सो 3 लेयर का नाम मैं बोल चुका हूँ. प्राइमरी लेयर, first layer to come with will be endoderm, which will form the epithelium. Then surrounding will be splanchnoploric mesoderm, which will form the smooth muscle coat or layer, connective tissue, blood vessels, etc. Yes? Okay, fine. So this is how you need to write. Now, actually I wanted to